In this video, I'm going to cover how to install Retroarch on an Xbox Series X or S, and a number of fun extras. Welcome to the second edition of my How to Install Retroarch on your Xbox Series X or S tutorial. For the longest time, the UWP version of Retroarch wasn't getting an official update on the Retroarch website, so it has been stuck at version 1.9.0 for quite a few months. With the release of 1.9.4, this has changed, and the official build has finally been caught up to where Retroarch is with its current releases. It has been over 5 months since I made the first version of this guide, and a number of things have changed. I've learned a few more things about how dev mode works, how to better optimize a setup for it. So this guide is looking to be kind of an all-inclusive update for everyone just starting out, how to get the best experience out of dev mode, with the least amount of hassle, I hope. Some parts of this guide haven't changed from the original version, like how to activate dev mode on your account. That's going to be the same from the old video, so if you already have dev mode activated, you can skip right ahead to expanding your dev mode storage space. If you already did that, you can skip ahead to installing the new version of Retroarch and getting that all configured. But let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to start on the Xbox side of things, so load up your Xbox Series S or Series X. And once you're on the dashboard, you can press the Y button on your Xbox controller, and that will bring up a search menu. Go ahead and type in dev mode. And you will get this dev mode activation box here. And for the love of everything that's good, if you are on an Xbox Series X or S, choose the one with the green background that has an Xbox Series X or S on it, and not the one with an Xbox One, otherwise it will continually ask you to update your console when there are no updates. The program is only about 100 megabytes, so it shouldn't take too long to install, but for some reason the beginning of the download does take a minute before it really gets going, so I'm just leaving it all real time here for you. And now that that's downloaded, go ahead and open it. So you're going to get these welcome pages talking about welcoming you to the developer program and blah, blah, blah. Don't really care. So just go ahead and click next through all of these, and you will be greeted with a screen that has a code on it that looks something like this. Now this code is used to register your Xbox console to your developer account, so you do need to have a developer mode license. It costs $20, and we are going to go to the website listed here to get this all set up. Over on your computer, type in that web address that you just saw on your Xbox. So https://aka.ms/activate Xbox. And when you press enter, it will bring you to the Microsoft partner page if you're already signed into an Xbox Live account, or a Microsoft account rather. So I'm already logged in, so it just brought me to this. You might need to log in for this to show up. From here, go ahead and scroll down to the developer programs, and there is a Windows and Xbox section here, also RipMixer. And Windows and Xbox, click Get Started, and it'll bring you to this new page, Get Started with Windows Apps. So we're going to click Sign Up Now, and go ahead and fill out all of this registration and account info. So it's going to ask you for your name, address, and payment options. So you are an individual, so you're going to be paying $19 to get this activated. So go ahead, fill all this out, get it set up. I'm just going to go ahead and skip past this part so you don't see all my personal info. After you finish your registration and payment, you will get a registration confirmation and be brought to your Microsoft developer dashboard here. From here, go ahead and type in that https://aka.ms/activate Xbox web address again. This will bring you to your Manage Xbox One Consoles tab where you can add in your Xbox Series X. So over on the right is a plus button. Click on that, enter activation code, and type in the code that appears on your Xbox. If you took a long time during registration like I did, when you enter the code, it might give you an error that it is no longer valid, like this. And that's fine. Just go ahead and refresh the page and refresh the page on your Xbox. Now do it again, enter activation code, and type in your new code. And your Xbox is now registered on your developer account. And you could go ahead and rename this if you want to. It doesn't have a name by default, so you could just add one if you feel so inclined. You don't have to. I just went ahead and did it anyway. And save when you're done. Ta-da! Your Xbox is all set up on your developer account and is ready to be switched into dev mode. So back over on the Xbox, you will see that the code page has changed over to this switch to developer mode page. So switch and restart and wait for it to reboot. After it finishes rebooting, you will be brought to the Xbox dev menu here, and there's quite an interesting look to this, but that's okay. If it asks you for advanced video features, go ahead and enable them. That way you just have your maximum display resolution set by default. Next, you want to make sure that your Xbox is connected to your network. If you're using Ethernet like I am, it's connected automatically, so you're good to go. But if it's not, you need to go down into Settings, launch your settings, go into your network settings, and then go back in and set up your wireless network as you need. Again, mine is connected through Ethernet, so I don't have to do this, but you need to make sure that your Xbox is connected to your network. Once that's finished, we need to set up our remote access settings. So for most of you, that's probably going to be down in the bottom right. I actually got rid of my test accounts page up here in the upper right. That way remote access is appearing up here, but just find your remote access settings, go into it, make sure that you enable the Xbox device portal with this handy dandy checkbox here. And then you're going to need to set up authentication. So check this box to require authentication. For whatever reason, I have not been able to get this to work without it. And a lot of you in the comment sections have said you have not been able to get this to work without it. So turn on require authentication and then set a username and password in here. And once that's done, you can go ahead and close out of the remote access tab. Next, we're going to expand our dev mode storage because without this, we cannot play any games over 2 gigabytes, so that pretty much eliminates anything PS2 related and Wii related. Not that those systems really work the greatest to begin with, but hey, they're still fun to experiment with. So to do this, we're going to press our start button on our controller, or menu button as it's known now. I really don't give a crap, it's a start button. And we're going to go down to manage dev storage. So by default, I believe it should be set to around 5-ish gigs. And you're going to want to expand this depending on how many PS2 or Wii games you're going to want to play, or just how many things you want to store internally. Most systems run great from USB, but there are a number that do require you to install games internally. So for my purposes, I'm actually just going to set this up to about 100 gigs. Let's go with 105. There we go. Now, to expand dev mode storage, you do need to have at least 50 gigs free on the retail side of your SSD. If you have too many Xbox games installed, you will not be able to expand storage until you clear up some space. So again, I'm going to go with 105 gigs for my purposes, and then I'll go down here and click Save. Now it's going to ask you to restart the box so it could do the changes, and if you have anything installed currently, like an older version of Retroarch or My Files Explorer, PPSSPP, what have you, it is going to delete all of that stuff. This is resetting your dev mode storage, so it's wiping everything. Make the appropriate backups now. Hit cancel, make the backups, come back and do it again. But once you hit restart, it will take a couple of minutes for it to reboot, so just be patient. And once that has rebooted, you could go in to manage dev storage, make sure it took the change appropriately. It looks like it did, so we are now ready to move over to our computer or other internet-enabled device, get Retroarch downloaded and installed on our Xbox. So head on over to retroarch.com and click on the download tab. From here, we're going to scroll down until we find the Xbox Series /1 UWP app right here. Now click on download. And then we also need to download the Microsoft Visual C++ 2015 UWP runtime package, so click on that as well. If for whatever reason these try to install on your computer, you can right click on them and hit save link as, and then manually save it to your preferred folders. Additionally, you can also download the My Files Explorer app right now from the link that will be in the description below. Read the description. There's a link there. It'll say My Files Explorer. You can download it from that link. It's right there in the description. I think we get it. In the description. In the description. Anyway, once you have all the packages that you want to install to your Xbox, we are ready to begin doing so. So to do this, open up a web browser. Now go up to the navigation bar and type in the IP address that appears in your device portal settings. So just a quick reminder here, it's just up in that upper right hand corner for me. For you, it's probably going to be down in that bottom right hand corner. So type in the address as you see it right there. And mine had autocomplete on, so that's nice. Now you'll get a thing saying your connection isn't private. Alright, that's cool, you're just connecting to a friggin' Xbox. Click on Advanced. Continue anyway. And then it will ask you for the username and password that you set up previously. And once you get logged in, you should be at a screen that looks very similar to this. And we're ready to begin installing our programs. So we're going to go ahead and start out with Retroarch. So click on Add under My Games and Apps. And you can either drag in the Retroarch package file or click Choose File. I'm just going to click on Choose File. And I'm going to choose Retroarch. From here, click on Next. And it's going to ask you to choose any necessary dependencies. And this is where we're going to put in that Visual C++ dependency file we downloaded. So choose File. Microsoft VC Libs. And once we have that selected, we can go ahead and click on Start. And it will begin installing Retroarch. And once that's finished, you can click on Done, and you will now see Retroarch under My Games and Apps. Now, if you are choosing to install My Files Explorer, you will do so now. So click on Add, choose the file, and then choose My Files Explorer. Click Open. Next, this one doesn't have any dependencies, so click on Start. And done. There we go. Now you have Retroarch and My Files Explorer installed onto your Xbox Series X or S. With Retroarch and optionally My Files Explorer installed, we're going to switch back over to the Xbox for a moment and get a few things set up. The most important of which is to change Retroarch from an app to a game. If you don't change this, the file browser gets screwed up, performance is killed, and it'll just make your life a big headache. So press the back button or view button on your controller, and it will bring up a little options menu here. And from here, we're going to go down to view details. And as you can see, the app type is set to app. If you press A on this, you can change it to a game. Once this is set, go ahead and press B. And then we're just going to restart the console for the change to take effect. Once your console is finished rebooting, you can go down to Retroarch, press your back button again, view details, and make sure it's still set to a game. It is good. Let's go ahead and launch into Retroarch for the first time. So when you first launch into Retroarch, you will notice that it doesn't look quite right. Most of the labels are blocked out, and the text is all retro-y. And this is simply because Retroarch doesn't come with its assets installed by default, so no icons, no text, nothing. So we need to go down to the online updater, and we need to update our assets. And once it's finished extracting, it will look a lot better. We now have icons and everything is good. But we're not quite done there, so head back into the online updater and make sure that you update your core info files, controller profiles, databases, overlays if you plan to use some, GLSL shaders, and slang shaders. You can also update the cheats that Retroarch has built into it here as well if you plan on using cheats. But once you have everything up to date, we can back out of the online updater Now from here we're going to set a few options to make our Retroarch install a little bit nicer. So press left on your D-pad or thumbstick to go over to the left menu here and go down to Settings. Now one of the nicest things about 1.9.4 is that it has all of the drivers set the way that I would recommend having them set. So we don't need to mess with anything in the drivers menu at this time. So our first stop is actually going to be under User Interface. Press A to enter this menu, and we're going to go down to Show Advanced Settings and turn that on. Now there are a couple of other steps I'd recommend doing here just to save yourself some time and headaches later, and that would be to go into Menu Item Visibility. Now the first thing we're going to do, we're going to disable the Show Explore tab. This tab can cause crashes when you start making playlists within Retroarch. It is a hassle, it's a headache, there is always a long stutter or pause when it gets to this tab, so just turn it off. And then you can also turn off images, music, and any other tabs here that you might want to turn off. So for me, I like to turn off the Help tab, Explore, I like favorite. No, I don't even care for favorites, honestly. I like History, Import Content will leave, Playlist, definitely. But yes, the main ones here are going to be turning off the Explore tab. Once you have these set the way you want, you can just go ahead and back out. And then back out again to the main settings page. But now that we have the Show Advanced options enabled, let's go up to the video settings here and enter this tab. From here, we're going to go down to full screen mode, and we're going to turn on Start in Full Screen Mode. Now, one of the new features added to the UWP version of Retroarch is to force the resolution to 4K on Xbox consoles. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to work with the OpenGL driver currently. It works under DirectReady 12 and I believe DirectReady 11 cores, but for OpenGL, this just messes up your screen like you can see here. Even when it's set to the correct 0 and 0, it doesn't work under OpenGL, so I'm gonna ignore this for the time being and hope for an update that will add OpenGL support, because once that's implemented in all 3 video drivers, that is going to be sick. And the reason for that is because of scaling. Integer scaling is a great way to get a sharp picture with no shimmering effects on scrolling or just other visual noise that goes on when you upscale a game to an improper ratio. So I like to enable integer scaling, but it does cause a border currently in the UWP version of Retroarch on most cores. With that Force 4K mode, most of these 240 games natively scale up to 4K, so you get a nicer, bigger picture, but under OpenGL cores we just don't have that yet. At least not that I've been able to get a workaround for. If you know the magic bullet to get it to work under OpenGL, let me know. But yes, turn on integer scaling if you want a sharper, nicer picture, but do be aware it will cause a black border around certain cores. And then one more option you could set if you so choose is to enable or disable bilinear filtering. If you want your image to appear a little bit smoother but more blurry, you can enable bilinear filtering, gets rid of some of the harsh pixels, or if you prefer to have them sharp, leave it off. But with that, we are done in the video options. Next, head down to Input, and from here we're going to scroll down to Hotkeys, and we need to enable a menu toggle controller combo, otherwise we can't leave any of our emulation cores without a keyboard. So press A on this, and set the combo that will work for you. I'm going to turn mine on to hold start for 2 seconds. And there's also a number of other hotkeys available in here as well if you so choose to set them up. But once you're finished, go ahead and back out of the Hotkeys tab. And then we can back out of Input. Once you have all of these options set, go back over to the left and scroll up to Main Menu, and then scroll down to Configuration File, and save the current configuration. And then we can go ahead and quit out of Retroarch and load back in for all of the settings to take effect. And that's pretty much going to cover it as far as basic Retroarch setup on Xbox Series X and S goes. From this point, you can continue on with any of my core setup guides to get started playing your games. Those guides were made using the 1.9.0 version, but the basic setup steps are going to be identical, the menu just looks different. A link to that playlist will be down in the description below. And then just as a quick note, when you are done playing games in Retroarch and want to change your Xbox back over to retail mode, you could do so by going over here and hitting Leave Dev Mode. And when you press A on this, a box will appear that says leave dev mode. Switch out of developer mode will restart your console. Delete side-loaded games and apps. That is checked. That means it's going to delete all of your stuff. So uncheck it before pressing OK unless you want to reinstall everything. But with that basic setup out of the way and everyone is able to continue on with the core guides as they are currently built, I want to talk about some advanced setup options that you can choose to do if you plan on doing a more internal install of Retroarch. One of my biggest pet peeves about this entire process has always been My Files Explorer. I hate this app, I hate using it, I hated having to explain it in every video how to use it. I just really don't like it. And it turns out that you can make it so you don't even need it. And it is the greatest thing ever to not need this stupid program. So for those of you that are interested, I'm going to show you how to get Retroarch set up so you never need to use My Files Explorer again. So turn your Xbox on, leave it in dev mode, be on the dev mode screen here, and we're going to go back over to our PC. This tutorial is going to cover how to do this on PC. If you're on Mac or Linux, I don't know the process on how to access the file browser and stuff on that. This is specifically for Windows users right now. You can try to follow along on those operating systems. If you are able to do file browsing easily, then it should work just fine. I just don't know. I don't have those operating systems to go over it and learn how to do it. But anyway, switching back over to PC. Our first step to getting an install that doesn't require My Files Explorer is to once again go back into the Xbox device portal. Once you have the device portal pulled up, we are going to click on the File Explorer tab here on the left. From here, there is a Browse button over on the right-hand side. Click on that, and it will give you instructions on how to open a File Explorer into your Xbox. So basically, you copy this address here, and then on Windows, all you need to do is open up something like this PC or any other file browser, and then click in the navigation bar and paste in that address. And when you press enter, it's going to ask you for a username, which is right here, and a password, which is right there. If you don't want to enter a username and password every time that you pull up this address, there is a key down here. So this guy right here, it starts with cmd-key.exe. You could copy this whole thing and then load up command prompt. So I just type CMD in the search bar here. Brings it right up. So then you can just open it. And once command prompt is open, just paste in that command key that you just copied and press enter. And it adds the credentials for that address. So that way every time you copy in your File Explorer address, you could just press enter and it will bring you to your Xbox. And then from here you can navigate into your Retroarch folders. Now another step that I wholeheartedly recommend that you do is to map this as a network drive. As you can see down here, I have done so previously. This is my Xbox's internal storage. It shows me how much space I have left. I can easily enter it and access all of my files in dev mode. To do this on Windows, you just click on Map Network Drive up here. Map Network Drive. Copy in the File Explorer address. Assign it a drive letter. I already had mine set to X. Tell it to reconnect it, sign in if you want to. You don't need it to. And then click on Finish, and you will now have a network location to your Xbox just like I do right here. Again, this is a major time save and just super convenient. Lets you know exactly how much space is on your Xbox and lets you copy over files super easily. But let's go ahead and mess around in here so we can make it so Retroarch never needs My Files Explorer again. So open up the Windows Apps folder. Go into your Retroarch folder. We're looking for the 1.9.4.0_x64 folder right here. Now we're going to make some new folders. So first up, we are going to make a system folder. So type in system. Done. Now we want to make a saves folder. Done. Now a save state folder. So that one we could just call state. States. Done. And now one more folder we're going to make is a games folder. There. So basically, Retroarch is split across two partitions under the UWP build. A lot of it is here in the S drive that I have accessed on the computer. A lot of it is on the Q drive, which is what you would access through My Files Explorer. By making these folders, we are going to move some of the things that we need to change most often into our S drive so we can access them from a computer. So for example, all of your system BIOS files go in a system folder. We can now copy them over from our computer instead of having to copy them over with a USB thumb drive. If you want to backup or import saves, you can move your save folder to the S drive, so that way you can move them between your computer. You can move them between your computer or move them to your Xbox, and then save states as well. And then a games folder, so we can store our games on the S drive properly, so that way it doesn't break our Retroarch install by putting them in the Q drive. If you so choose, you can also make another folder in here and name it config. So that way, any config file you make outside of the default one will be saved into the S drive for easy backup as well. Once you have these folders made, we just need to change the location that Retroarch is looking for them back on the Xbox. So back on the Xbox, open up Retroarch. Go over to settings, and this time we are going to press up on our D-pad to go to Directory. I don't know why I said it like that, but whatever, we did it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to change is the system/BIOS folder. So press A on this, navigate down to S. Scroll down to Program Files, Windows Apps. Choose the 1.9.4_x64 folder here. And choose your new system folder. And tell it to use this directory. There we go, our system folder is now defaulted to the S drive. Now I was going to change my config files to the S drive as well, so configs, we're going to change this down to S. Program Files, Windows Apps, Retroarch folder. Config folder, use this directory. And then we were going to scroll down and we're going to change the location of our save files. Save files, change it to the S drive. Program Files, Windows Apps, Retroarch folder, and saves, use this directory. And then save states, same thing, S drive. Program Files, Windows Apps, Retroarch folder, States folder, use this directory. And there we go. The most commonly accessed folders are now available through your computer network, so you don't ever need to touch My Files Explorer. You can back up your save files, your save states, your configs, your system folder. It's all accessible now through the network. So once you have these set, you can back out, go to the main menu, and save the current configuration. And now we never need to touch My Files Explorer again. This method makes Retroarch on Xbox so much better than it ever was before. I definitely recommend doing it, but you don't have to. You can keep using My Files Explorer. You can keep doing it the way I showed back in December, but this new way is a lot simpler and far more convenient. But that's going to do it for this video on how to install Retroarch for your Xbox Series X and S. As always, if you happen to have any questions about any part of the setup procedure outside of things that are completely out of my control, like Microsoft's billing procedures, I can't do anything about that. I'm not a Microsoft employee. There's nothing I could do there. But any questions related to Retroarch and the setup, ask in the comments. I will help you out and try to get you set up. But now, if you could all do me a huge favor, please be sure to hit that like or dislike button, just depending on how much you like today's video. And if you haven't done so already, hit that sub button so you can see when new videos go live on the channel. We're going to be making a few updates to a couple of the Retroarch setup videos for Xbox, so stay tuned for that. If you'd like to further help support the channel, you can also check out that join button here on YouTube or the Patreon link in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. My channel has gotten to the point where it's big enough that the files that I am hosting are starting to cause too much traffic for free file hosting, so I am having to start paying for file hosting, so any little bit helps in regard to that. Thank you to all of our current champions that are really keeping us going here. You guys are rock stars. We appreciate you so much. But that's gonna do it for this one. So until next time, my wonderful internet peeps, stay awesome, and we will see you all back next video.